And where do we want to do the mini-sode? Is that
I
still a
think,
plan?
yeah, why don't we do it after our bio break?
So between the two episodes kind of
Hmm.
thing? Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
We could call it
Good.
between the episodes
We,
because it's recorded between episodes and it's showing up between Tuesdays.
wow. I mean, there's so much depth to that. You're like, you're like redefining how we even think about sandwiches right now.
I'm Bert.
I'm Drew.
I'm Ron.
I'm also Ron. No, I'm Ryan.
And this is the 100 Albums podcast where we normally discuss the ins, outs, and absurdities of a poster that picks 100 seemingly random albums, but this is a mini episode. We're trying something a little bit different these days. We're going to just have a short conversation about topics that we think are outside of the poster, but are still worthy of discussion. And this week we're going to be talking about just what's been getting heavy rotation in our daily lives when we're not listening to albums that are appearing on the poster. So, Ron, why don't you kick us off? What's been getting heavy rotation for you lately?
Heavy rotation in my house is Billy String's new album's Highway Prayers. It is awesome. So, for those of you who don't know Billy Strings, he's a bluegrass guy predominantly, but now that he's gaining popularity, he's playing with everybody. He's played with Primus, a lot of just stuff that's not bluegrass. And on this album, you can really see he's kind of taking more of a Grateful Dead kind of take on some things, getting out there a little bit. And so really good songwriting. He's an absolutely amazing guitar player. But the guys he has playing with him are no slouches by any stretch of the imagination. So it is a double album. So there's a lot on there, but it is so far. I got it Tuesday. I've listened to it all at least once. There's a lot on there, but there's not a whole lot of dead stuff or whatever. So yeah, check it out.
Nice. Awesome. Ryan, how about you?
Well, it's going to be a little different than Ron's selection, but I have been listening to Extra by Peter Evans. It's a jazz trio album. Peter Evans on piccolo trumpet, flugelhorn and piano, Peter Eld on bass and synthesizer, and Jim Black on drums and electronics. It's got a lot of really interesting exploration. I've been listening to Peter for a while, but I haven't really heard an album of his that uses electronics in this way. And there's some really ear-opening moments, particularly for me. If people are just looking to kind of dive in and you don't want to listen to the whole album per se, side 2 opens with a piece called Movement 56, which is largely electronic. And then as it kind of reaches its, maximum electronic sound, it breaks into the second track, which is Underworld, which is just killer. I mean, the drum and bass beat that starts that before Peter comes in is just insane. So that is the album I am currently spinning heavily. Extra by Peter Evans.
Awesome. Drew, how about you?
Well, you caught me off guard with this one because it hasn't been a great listening week, but I did reference in fact, out of actual vinyl, and I shared this with you guys the other night, I threw NWA on, but that wasn't a heavy listen. That was just a evening. Was that election night? I don't know. It could have been, but oh, that's a reference we can't make. Sorry.
No, you can because this will air.
Okay.
Relatively soon. Yeah.
Well, then I recalled my daughter sent me a text. She was record shopping and said, "Hey," sent me a picture of this album. She knew that I would know, but she didn't know how important it was to me. And so then that started me on a constant listen. And that is Pictures at an Exhibition by Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Nice.
Kind of basic, if you know me, to nothing unusual there, but man, it's something I hadn't listened to in a long time, and so I did quite a bit of that. And they redid Modest Mussorgsky's effort, Pictures at an Exhibition, that he had written in the Romantic era, and it's the 3-piece prog rock group driven by wild man Keith Emerson on organ and synth, and something to behold musically. It's not perfect. It's not gorgeous. There's a lot to be criticized, but a lot of just youthful. I mean, these guys were 21, 22 when they did this. And that considered, as well as just my love for the band in general, it's a great album, and I love it. And if you watch the performance of it live, you'll see Keith Emerson playing some sort of one long synthesizer that looks like a fluorescent light bulb by jamming it in between his legs repeatedly, and by picking up a and by picking up his organ and smashing it on the ground, and
his picking up his organ and smashing it on the ground. Really?
Yeah, I mean, he was very dramatic on stage, and very influenced by Jimi Hendrix. So, great album.
Awesome. I have been listening to a lot of MF Doom lately, and maybe this is also in reaction to Tuesday selection results. But for those of you who aren't familiar with Doom, I listened back in the late 80s. I was a big fan of a hip hop group out of New York City called Third Base, MC Search, Pete Nice, and they had kind of discovered and took under their wing a group called KMD. And one of the members of KMD, a rapper by the name of Zev Love X, he and his brother in this hip hop group, they put out a couple albums, good stuff. His brother, another member of the group, Sub Rock, died. And as a result, Zev Love X went through some really tumultuous times with the record label, with the record industry, because they were under contract and, were producing things. But with his brother passing away, the record label pretty much just walked away from him. So he retreats from the record industry, basically becomes homeless, and years later, like about 10 years later, resurfaces at like open mic nights and stuff. But he's completely changed. He's no longer going by Zev Love X. He's adopted the moniker Doom, and he wears like the mask like Victor Von Doom, Dr. Doom from the Marvel comics, talking about how he's been disfigured he's recovering from his wounds and disfiguration as a result of the record industry. So he takes on kind of this persona. So under the MF Doom moniker, he put out a couple. He passed away here a couple of years ago, but he put out several albums in the early 2000s, and I've been obsessed with kind of the production elements of the records. In particular, I've been listening to Food, and it's stylized Food, which is an anagram for MF Doom. So that album came out in November 2004, and he also did a collaborative record called Madvillany with producer and rapper Madlib, and that was in March 2004. So really great hip hop artistry. His even when he was in KMD back in the late 80s, I really liked his flow. But the big difference between his work with KMD and then later as MF Doom is that it gets a lot darker, because a lot more has happened to him in his life, and he's talking about kind of these challenges and struggles and things. So, MF Doom. The other piece of it is, if you're a Marvel Comics nerd, a few months ago, it was announced that Robert Downey Jr. will be returning to the Marvel Cinematic Universe playing a different iteration of Dr. Doom. And so, of course, MF Doom's music has been resurrected as a way to say, hey, Marvel, what you should do is in the opening of the movie, like when the Marvel logo is coming across the screen, it should be playing One Beer or one of the songs from MF Doom's catalog. So good stuff. Highly recommend if you are interested in some moderately obscure hip hop.
This is good stuff for me because, well, I mean, I know the ELP record that Drew's been listening to, which, by the way, has very dubious lyrics. But
oh, dude, like I said, there's a lot to be argued about that record. But it's what I was listening.
It's still a good record, though. Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know the MF Doom, and I don't know much about Billy Strings, so I'll put those in the ears this week.
I have a question. Bert, you talked about
KMD.
Did they have like a hit in the 80s or 90s?
They had. I wouldn't call it a hit. Hold on a second. So,
and was there a guest like a Tammy Wynette or someone?
Not that I'm aware of.
When you said that, I had a flashback from when I was a kid. Just a lyric went through my head, and I was like, "Is this what he's talking about, or am I, just having jumbled thoughts again?"
Right. I don't think so. So they released. They had two albums, Mr. Hood and Black Bastards. Mr. Hood came out in 91. Black Bastards came out in 2000. And Mr. Hood was really the only one I think that got any kind of acclaim, but it was like very underground. I don't know, not underground, it's not the right word, but it's not like it was played on the radio or anything like that. So, Who Me is probably the song that was most well known from that. But yeah.
I Googled it. It was KLF.
Ah, you're
Sorry.
talking about
Sorry, everybody.
3 a.m. Eternal. Great song. Yeah, those 3-letter band names that start with K, you know.
Or KMFDM.
KMFDM.
Little different.
little bit different vibe there. Well, hey, thanks for listening, everyone. I just wanted to give everyone an idea of what's going on in our day-to-day, what we're listening to when we're not listening to and talking about these poster albums, that we do have other stuff we listen to for pleasure. In the meantime, if you've got something you think we should take a listen to, let us know. Write us at 100albums@bertislo.com. That's 100albums@bertislo.com. In the meantime, there's lots of episodes of our podcast out there to go listen to. 100albumspodcast.com. We're on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.